Some of that pent up aggression. To be honest. But hey, this is Tim's fire. Not a military guy. Don't burn your finger, Josh.
Welcome back to the podcast.
So good. Oh. Num, num, num. It's the tea. Oh, that's so good.
We needed our fire today.
Yeah, it's freaking cold, man. It's snow. I walked out in the snow to get to the hot tub this morning.
And this is a
5:30.
primary heat source for the man cave here.
It is. It is the only current heat source.
As should be in such said man cave.
Well, I am contemplating putting something in here so it at least takes the edge off.
Come on.
Hey. Sometimes a guy doesn't want to start a fire. And if it's, I don't know, maybe May, and it happens to be cold in the morning, it'd be nice if you walked out here and it wasn't bitter-ass cold, because you know you're not going to start a fire. Because at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, it's going to be plenty warm, but I'm out in this thing at between 5 and 6 every morning. It'd be kind of nice if it was at least, 55 in here. It doesn't need to be like 70. But it'd be nice if the concrete didn't feel like walking on ice when you're barefoot.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's our sign to get a big chunk in there.
Chunk it up.
Well, maybe that's your version of cold therapy.
Yeah, it could be. Could be, but I think I'm going to make myself buy a cold plunge and do that instead. And the main reason is because I can't seem to make myself do it, but if I spend a whole bunch of money on it, then I'll really make myself do it. I know that I'm like, God, you spent $5,000 or whatever this is on this stupid thing. You better use it, or I'm going to be mad at myself, because I hate wasting money. Yeah. And if I'm going to live here till I die, I've got, God willing, 40 to 60 years left, right?
Yeah,
why not just do it now?
You've planted your stake and your seed here.
Yeah, I just got to start lobbying the Idaho to adopt. Like, I wonder if I can, we can just go, just a little circle and call it Idaho West.
All they'd have to do is move the border about 5 miles.
I know. God, I wish they would do it. I wish so much. Well, actually, but if they're going to do that, just go to at least go to the Columbia River, right, and have the river be the border. Other than when you get to the Kettle River where it meets the Columbia, and then take that north. So then my property is still in Idaho too. Oh man!
How many Washington elk have you shot?
Oh Jesus! I am guessing.
Is it in the double digits?
Not quite. Close, though. I think I've killed 8 or 9. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because I think all but 2 years where I hunted with my buddy Greg, I killed an elk. And then I've shot
rifle or bow?
All bow. Never shot one with a gun. I killed an elk with a rifle in Idaho 2 years ago or 3 years ago now, when I first started hunting with my cousin again. Because for that 10-year stretch with my buddy Greg, I just stopped hunting out of state because I didn't want to spend the money, and I really just wanted to kill an elk, so I had meat in my freezer.
Were you guys calling them in with Greg?
No, you're sitting over water, feed, and waiting.
Pinch points or whatever.
Yeah, just sitting and waiting, and you do it every day, and you go up for like a week, and nothing about it's hard other than having to have patience, having to just be quiet, little low eco footprint. You don't go out, like when you're in the cabin, you don't go outside. You make little noise. You little smell. You don't go out to the shop and move something around. You just stay inside, stay quiet. Don't add anything to the environment, which is what I'm trying to duplicate at my property that I own now, assuming that our state doesn't do really dumb things to make it really hard to be hunting, which it wouldn't shock me if they do.
I've always thought the person who was dedicated enough to that system would annually kill elk really well.
If you've done enough work. It took a while. Like Greg had the property.
It's preparation, scouting, getting to know your pinch points and stuff. But God, for the amount of time you think about, if you've elk hunted hard and put miles on daily with a typical run and gun style of elk hunting, like you might spend 14 days and hike 10 miles every day.
You could.
Like you might hike 140 miles in 14 days and not punch an elk tag. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you just spent that same time in like a concentrated area, wallow, pinch point, saddle, whatever that was, I just feel like, man, I don't know.
Well, that the thing with Greg's place was it was water.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't water for a long ways, and that was the only water. And one year it dried up when we had that like massive drought like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and we spent that September rooting all the plant life out of the water hole and lining it with 2 tons of bentonite to help seal it, and the water level never dropped again. Which is why I thought I might be able to duplicate that where I'm at, but I on my entire property, I've yet to find anything that has even a spring in it that makes it all year. There's some water nearby, and there's water in the bottoms, and I'm on the top, so there's still reasons for animals to come around, but it's typically, salt and feed. And I'm hoping to put a food plot in the next couple of years, a pretty good sized food plot, because there is enough of a flat spot in one area where I could cultivate and have a food source that they would be used to being around naturally, so I don't have to feed, assuming our state doesn't take that away from us at some point, but they very well could. But the biggest thing was always water, and that's why there was always elk. You'd go 3 or 4 days without seeing an elk, but then all of a sudden here they are, and they're here for 2 or 3 days, and then they're gone, then they're here, and then they're gone.
Nomad.
And you just have to be waiting.
They live that nomad life.
Yeah, you just have to be there and waiting and sitting. Because the time they come in, that might be the only time you ever get a decent opportunity about them the first go.
And in September, it could be any time of day.
Well, yeah, and it's normally not like one. It's like, there's 10, 15, 20 of them at one time. So there's a crap ton of eyes and ears.
Part of the challenge.
So it's challenging in its own way. It's not the same style of hunting, and I commend both. I think they're both challenging in their own way, but one takes a lot more year-round work. And Greg had the property for 2 years before I started hunting with him. He invited me up and he hadn't done a ton of tree stand type hunting and that kind of thing, and I had done a lot of it. So he was looking for advice. He said, well, why don't you just come up during season and spend a couple of days, spend 2 or 3 days, trying to get me to stay for a week. And at that time, I couldn't be gone that long. But I had a great time, and I could totally see where this would really pay off. And so I switched gears and said, okay, I'm going to spend a week up here every year. And the non-hunting time, I'll spend at least a month up here helping, preparing, improving land, that sort of thing. And I did that for 10 years. And I think 8 of the 10 years I killed an elk. The first year I didn't kill an elk. And there was a year that a fire came through and burned the property along with a crap ton of other property out there. Like it was one of the bigger fires in Washington that year. And that year I didn't kill an elk. But I think every other year, no, there was one more year I didn't because our buddy Ron was hunting with us, and he had never killed an elk, and there was one opportunity.
Was Ron the guy here for that? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was one opportunity, and I actually got to watch Ron kill his first elk.
Yeah, Ron was here being like our young Jamie for the Hot Wings podcast.
He was our saucier.
He was our saucier.
He was our saucier. Yeah.
And one of our original Hot Wings podcasts that you should go back and watch if you haven't.
Yeah.
Very fun podcast.
Yeah, we need to redo that with shooting, though. And
absolutely. Or just redo it here.
I have it all stashed up there. I have all the hot sauces.
Yeah. Do you have any hunts booked this year?
Oh, God, I don't think so. I've talked about a couple of different things, but no, I haven't booked anything yet.
What do you think a perfect year would be for the amount of hunts you'd like to do or style of hunts or whatever?
365 days of hunting.
Really?
Dude, I don't.
Have you ever had a year where you hunted like 40, 50 days?
No, I don't think I have. Every year it seems like it's a little bit more and a little bit more. I'd have to sit down and jot down how many days I hunted this last year, but I bet you it was at least 30 between early season and late season and spring stuff.
Spring can really stack up a lot of days if you put some time in. Yeah.
I didn't hunt in the spring. I wanted to. But I had other obligations and things that took me away from it. But I had, I hunted for almost 2 weeks in September. I think it was just shy of 2 weeks if you count every day and every minute I went hunting in the 2 states. And then I hunted for a week it was end October. And then I hunted for 5 days and end of November. I feel like there was something else that I'm forgetting. Oh, I hunted for antelope for a week in August, or like 5 days or something like that. Or it was a week. Pretty sure it was a
I think
week.
it was a week, yeah.
And then I went down mule deer hunting in December for 4 days. And that's been my hunting.
Yeah. And at the end of the year, you didn't feel like, I mean, you still had room. You're still itching. You could have done more.
Yeah, I definitely would want to, whether I should or not. So,
yeah, whether it's responsible or not, right?
I guess I should have been keeping track of the days. That's probably about a month worth.
Yeah.
If you count them all. Might have been a little over a month. I would think a month and a half to 2 months would probably be my ideal. Because I would love to be spending at least 2 weeks in the spring hunting, because you should be able to, and at least 6 weeks in the fall.
Yeah.
If you're like booking out as much stuff as you can book out. But you know, that's also a matter of available time and what have you, and the workloads I keep throwing against myself.
Everything's an opportunity cost. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, God, you knucklehead, what are you doing?
Have you heard that term before? Opportunity cost?
I have, and I should get myself a shirt or tattoo it on my forehead.
Yeah. It's a very good word. If you've never heard it, opportunity cost means it's the one thing you're doing is the cost of not being able to do something else. So if Correct. You're making firewood, you can't be selling bows. Or if, you know,
you get the right electronic system.
Yeah. So it's the value of what you're doing versus what you could be doing, or in economics, what $1 is doing or another dollar could be doing.
Right.
So for those of you that want to retire, one of your dollars sitting in a savings account is not going to grow as quickly as one of your dollars sitting in a compounding interest account, such as a typical mutual fund or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's a simple economic thing for opportunity cost. But yeah, it's a really good word. And in fact, all the things I learned in school, I think that's one of the things that is like a pillar of, I don't know, I guess ideology. If I'm trying to make a decision, I'm like, well, what else could this be doing, or what else could my time be doing? Or it's like a good hoop to run your decision through.
For sure. Yeah. You can there's only so many hours in a day, mm-hmm. days in a week, weeks in a month, months in a year. And you can only select valuable things to put them in, or you're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff that isn't valuable when you're missing out on things that could be way more valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. What's on your archery mind right now?
Redoing my target bow for outdoor, and building like 4 or 5 bows to test to figure out which ones I want to hunt with, and finalizing all the equipment I need to do my broadhead testing, including finalizing that'll.
You're pretty serious about this broadhead testing.
Oh yeah. Well, the beauty of it is once you develop a system for it, it won't take a lot of time to make the videos, right? And you could make like 5 or 10 in a sitting pretty easily, and then that'll fill up a slot during the day. And there's some good broadhead stuff out there, but I don't see anybody. I mean, you can say Lusk does uniform measuring, but there's not like tangible numbers behind it. It's like what he calls it, and I want to see tangible numbers. I want to see, and there's some stuff that you don't typically see checked, and you know, I tend to be the, what's the right word? The check system in the industry when it comes to what they're saying things do and what they really do.
Checks and balances, like the honest friend in the room.
Yeah, I still got to find a sight for a bow that's a laser sight. It's like actually finitely adjustable. Mm-hmm. So when I shoot something out of the shooting machine, I can repoint it at the middle of the target every time and know it's repointed at the middle of the target every time. Because one of the ones that somebody, I need it for other stuff too, but that one of the ones that was pointed out to me is they wanted to see what the group looked like at 40 yards or 50 yards, right? And if you have a optimally tuned bow, optimally spined arrow, everything's square and even, right? You should be able to shoot any of the same weight broadhead out of that configuration and get a good group testing, right? So, but the only variable is human. And if a guy stands there and tries to shoot it and say, oh, this grouped good, this didn't. If I shoot the same 3 arrows every time out of a machine at 40 yards or 50 yards, with a laser dot pointed at the middle of the target, and I can have a spotting scope sitting there knowing it's right dead center in the middle of the target and discharge it, I would see what kind of groups they actually really shot and see if there's truth to, well, this one doesn't group very well or whatever, because you get a lot of that stuff, and I think a lot of that is user error or concentric issue, like it's just not straight.
Or tuning. It's so complicated, right? To have a perfect broadhead tune, like
so
how many customers walk through that door with a perfect broadhead tune?
Almost nobody.
Yeah, very difficult. Like that's definitely more of a, I don't want to say advanced, but like another layer to tuning that most people don't fully understand or do consistently well.
But if you eliminate the human from it and you have everything set right, then you can see if there's really a difference between these broadheads and how well they group. And I'm sure I'll probably upset some people along the way in this, but I've been doing that for years, so why should I be worried about it now? But there's so much broadheads to test, and there's such a hot button topic. And then some of the visuals that you can make out of that from the producer Tim's standpoint, you can make some really cool looking things that would draw some eyeballs, and I would think over time they would do really well the way I want to do them. So I'm hoping that I'll be running that in 45 to 60 days from now.
That could be a valuable series for sure.
Yeah, and it'll be something that I do every year over and over, just like the bow reviews or anything like that. So I'm excited about that. And my mind's on that a lot right now, like a lot.
What does flipping your bow over to 3D mean for you? You said converting your bow to 3D.
Going from a big fat target arrow to a smaller 3D setup. Actually sliding it in for distance, because when I'm doing a indoor bow, I don't have a sight tape on it. It's just keep moving it up and down, left, right, till it hits in the middle and leave it alone.
Yeah.
So I don't even, half the time I don't even set my rail, because who cares? It's it's 20 yards. It doesn't matter. You don't need those things. You just need a sight that moves small amounts left and right and up and down. That's in finite clicks. A little bit of, that just moved a 1/4 inch, or that just moved a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch. Small movements. That's all you really need in that scenario. And I want to make sure that's going good, because if we get decent weather, I'd like to start trying to do some lifestyle stuff.
Shooting your bow?
Yeah, shooting my bow, and the kind of stuff you like doing.
Yeah.
I'd like to start trying to do that regularly, consistently. But I got to have a bow that functions, and that's kind of the hard part about all this, is because I test so much stuff, and that's just going to get worse. It's hard to have a good functioning piece of equipment sitting there ready to go.
It's like you got to have one that is the bow that's dialed, and then you got to have like a side piece. Something that part's good.
Yeah, like 4 side pieces, dude.
I get it. Yeah,
it's tough.
It is a challenge.
I was just
because there's nothing worse than having a bow perfectly tuned and doped, and then you rip a piece of equipment off to test something.
Yeah,
it just
wasn't that what did you call that? You need your YouTube bow.
Yeah, you need
and then your hunting bow.
You need something you can rip parts off of.
Yeah, that's just good. And fortunately, I have so much stuff, but people. I say it like that, but at the same time, I paid for all of it. Like it's not like it was free.
When Dan was at the shop the other day and was like, "Do you pay for these bows?" And you're like, "I pay for all these bows."
Yeah, of course I do. What are you talking about?
It's like, I've actually paid for every bow on these walls.
I got 1,500 bows through there a year, or 2,000 bows through there a year. I pay for all of them.
Yeah.
So every time I build a bow for this or that or whatever, I paid for it. Like, it's sitting there. Now, once I commit to something, I will typically, I will probably call the manufacturer and say, "Hey, I'm going to hunt with your bow this year. Will you send me one that I don't have to pay for?"
Yeah.
Because, it's good advertising for them. And anybody that owns a shop can call any bow manufacturer and say, "Hey, I want a bow," and they will give you a bow.
It's pretty common.
It's normal.
Yeah,
like the people behind the counter make a lot of sales, and there's programs for almost anybody working behind somewhere to get a reduced thing. So it's not like them sending me a bow is making me say anything one way or another in that scenario. But when I do these, 5 bow tests to try to pick one, I'm paying for all of them.
Yeah.
Like, they're not sending me a bow for free in hopes that I'm going to pick their brand.
Well, I converted my bow to a 3D bow.
Yeah, what did that entail for you?
It was swapping strings 3 days before a tournament. We got a circle to that.
Yeah, I remember you, dirty dog. How many of us did you ask?
Okay.
And how many of us said, yeah, Tim, that's a good idea?
So I asked 3 people I trust very much. I asked Josh. I asked Justin. Justin's the manager of the shop, and he's like way geeked out on target archery, more than anybody else I know. So very trusted peer. Trust his bow as much as anyone with it in his hands. My bow in his hands. And then Michael, who's a young up-and-comer we just had on the podcast. And all of them said it was a terrible idea. All 3 of you guys.
Didn't you FaceTime me last after they all told you no?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And what exactly I said?
You said
you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
This is the worst idea you've ever had. Okay, thanks. Click. And he did it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you knucklehead. How did it turn out?
So I swapped from stock strings to the Gas Ghost XV. Is that what they're called? Ghost XVs?
Just Ghost.
Gas Ghosts.
Yeah.
In white on the PSE Super Axe. And they're definitely different than the stock strings. Like the stock strings just had some squish to them. And they also had some fray around them. Like they had some fray around my peep. They had some fray around the serving. And that's probably because I did my peep, for better or for worse.
You can damage that trying to do that.
And I probably did that. But those gas strings are much tauter, if that's the right word, taut. There's not as much squish. And anyway, we spent the evening getting the strings on the bow, got them on the bow, got it retuned, got some small arrows built the Victory 3D HVs. Is that right? Victory 3D HVs, which are like the brother or cousin of RIP XVs.
Yeah, it's the exact same arrow. It just has a different graphic on it.
Yeah, and they come with a bushing.
G-knock bushing instead of a regular compression knock. And then the XVs come with inserts, and the 3D HVs don't come with any insert.
And the bushing basically allows you to replace knocks easier, right?
Well, and it protects the end of the arrow too.
Yeah.
So if you hit it with another arrow, i.e. in target situations where you're grouping, it gives you a little metal collar on the back end to deflect points. And if you break your knock off, you can replace it. It's not going to crack the end of the arrow. So they'll take a lot more abuse.
Anyway, these arrows are really light, 340 grains. I'll fast forward. We did a 3D shoot, and I got my marks, spent a couple days dialing it in, which is what I had. Got my marks, did a 3D shoot. I was really happy with how I shot. On the final 10 targets, I shot 6 11s. 6 11s, 2 10s, 2 8s, and both the 8s were on targets that were very dark that I couldn't really see.
Couldn't see the rings?
I couldn't really see the rings, yeah. And Joel and I ended up beating Michael and Justin in a little competition for the day, by the way.
Really?
Not for the final 10 targets, for the day. So what's that tell you?
I hadn't, nobody's actually told me any of this. So
this is a great story.
It's
dude.
Wednesday. Well, yeah.
This is a great story.
Do tell said story.
So what we did was match, and my intent was to record this, so I invited all the guys, wanted to make a video, but it was basically rained out. So, but we still did a little competition. We did 20 targets, 10 targets separated, like front 9, back 9 would be in golf, 10 and 10. So the way it would work is if you and I are on a team shooting against the other two, we take the best score from you and I's arrows. So if you shoot an 11, I shoot a 5, we take your 11 against their best arrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a ham and egg component to it.
And is that a 1 point win?
Yeah, it's
point per target. So what do they
there's
call
one
that
point
in golf?
match play. There's 1 point available per target. So if my team beats your team by 5 points, it doesn't matter. You only go up 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just match play. You get a point per hole or
you
per
go
target.
up, down, or no change.
Yep.
So on the first 10, they cleaned us pretty good. They beat us by 4 targets, 4 up. And then on the back 10, we made it to the final 1 up. Yeah, we were 1 up. They beat us on the final target. So we went to a shoot-off for the back 10 from 75 yards.
Yeah.
Joel shot last. I think we were all about 10 inches away from the center. Joel was like 3 inches from the center. He darted it. So we won the back half. So now we're 1-1 in our matches. So we go to another shoot-off for the grand finale. And Michael's the last shooter. I'm the first shooter. It was like 65 yards. And I stepped up, made what I felt was a pretty good shot on this buffalo. I felt like I finally kind of knew where to aim on it from 60 yards or something like that. I think I was on the edge of the 11. Justin shoots, very happy with it. His arrow went left. Joel shoots. His arrow was further than mine. Michael shoots, and Michael thought he absolutely peered it, and he was 12 inches left, so he was a little frustrated. Michael is definitely the best and most qualified shooter in our group. He
had some equipment issues.
He had a little bit of an issue that day. Yeah, he just ran into a little bit of on-course issue.
For context, he's ripped his bow apart and put it back together since then. Completely. He called me on Sunday, and he's like, "Hey, you at the shop? Are you going to the shop?" I was like, No, I won't be going by. And he's like, "You sure you don't want to come down and start putting your bow together and whatnot?" And he's like, "Because I need to rip my bow completely apart and start over because this is terrible." I'm like, "You're more than welcome to go in, dude, but I'm not going in today."
Yeah.
I've got too much other stuff to do. I got kids to cook dinner for tonight,
So anyway, we ended up winning the overall, and Joel and I were, just elated because we were a long shot to beat those guys, and I don't know, we ham and egged it pretty well, made some good shots, and it was a great day.
Nice.
Some observations though, those 3D HVs flew very well, and they also cut the wind better than I thought they would. Like 340 grain arrow. So a couple of times, one time on a caribou, there was a heavy side wind, like 25, 30 miles an hour, big gusts. And I bubbled in pretty hard. And this is one of the 5s I took that day. I over bubbled into the wind, and my arrow just basically hit where I thought it would. And then that final shot on the buffalo, there was probably a 15 mile an hour side wind, maybe 20. And I didn't really aim off at all. And it flew, hit. I watched my arrow fly, and there was very little drift. I'm sure there must have been some impact from the wind, but it was very minimal.
And how much tip weight do you have in that arrow?
150.
Okay, so you have almost half of the weight of the arrow in the front of the arrow.
340 grain arrow.
And when you do that, there's not a lot of mass behind it. Most of the mass is in front of it. That's why you want a certain percentage FOC or more.
Yeah.
Is it cuts wind like crazy. Unless it's a jumbo diameter arrow, and then there's more surface arrow for the wind to grab, which is why I traditionally don't like the bigger arrows for any outdoor stuff.
Cut wind like crazy. I was very impressed with that. And
now, if it's a calm day, it doesn't matter, but I don't like shooting two different arrow setups. I like feeling really good with one and leaving it alone. I know there's a lot of people that shoot a bigger arrow and a smaller arrow, which consequently somebody messaged me after that video I made about trying to shoot both. And he said, tune your bigger arrow and shoot a little knock high on your smaller arrow, and it'll shoot better, which I didn't think about that at first. And I would agree with it. That's probably the smartest way to do it, is actually tune your bigger arrow, because shooting a little knock low is not going to hurt anything. Or knock high is not going to hurt a damn thing. If anything, your fletchings are just going to clear your rest a little bit more and give you a little bit better clearance. So that's actually probably the smart way to do it. So thank you, Ryan Ferentz, for your suggestion, since I know you're listening.
Yeah.
Liked it.
He's one of our local regional.
He's Bonners Ferry area, not too far away. And he's
regional all-star shooters.
He went to ASA last year. He went to one, I think, I want to say.
He would be on like our
he's
top 10 in the region list.
He's a factory-sponsored shooter, not a shop-sponsored shooter. So he's pretty legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, yeah, man, very difficult conditions. Windy, rainy. It's a fun day.
So who is carrying the other team?
Well, who was carrying them?
Yeah.
Justin shot pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Michael was bragging about how Justin shot.
Michael shot pretty good in spurts. I mean, Michael, I'm sure at the end of the day, had the highest individual score. I think he was 20 up. And when 11s are your high score, 20 up is 420 for the day. And 11 is a high score. So that means he hit 11s on roughly half the targets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for him to have a tough day and still shoot 20 up, you know, he's really good. He's the real deal. He'll only continue to get better as he matures. But, you know, Joel and I pitched the perfect game on the back nine, and that was all it took.
That's the fun part about like team play or, you know, that kind of thing is a guy can be having a bad day and a guy can be having a good day, or you can, you know, as long as you're balancing each other out well, your individual score can not look good and you can still win because you got to have a strategy.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. Like if you've never played that way or ever shot that way, please try it. It is a absolute ball. Team events are killer. Like I could ignore the rest of it because that's just fun. The only catch, and this is what you run into struggles with, and this is the difference between a good teammate and a bad teammate, is you have to have an agreement up front how it's going to go. Like, for example, if you go to a tournament where there's a team, you need to start playing team to begin with. You can't go through day one and then whoever's got the worst score is now the guy shooting for the opposite. You literally have to address it like that's all that matters, because you're going to lose to people that they're playing it as a team. And what I mean by that is when someone shoots a worse score, you have to take over and go for the middle as opposed to, your 14 or what have you. And if somebody does make a good shot, you have to go for a 14. You have to not care about what your score ends up being individually. Mm-hmm. You have to only care about the score that the team would make.
Yeah, you can't dip your biscuits in both sets of waters.
You're playing.
You'll end up pulling water from one or the other.
Yeah, and if you're tearing it up, shooting really good, you still have a really good chance of winning an individual award. But you can't play team with the intent of it being individual.
Yeah.
If you're shooting a format where your 14s matter, you could do it for 12s and still be caring about your score. But if you're shooting a format where there's 14s, there's no way. You have to pick that up front.
So equipment choices that I really liked. First of all, first time shooting a blue fiber outdoors at that kind of event, my favorite. Mm-hmm. Seems like I had the most contrast, best sight picture. Mm-hmm. 4-power lens. Seems like about the right power for that event. Some of those guys are shooting 6s. Michael was shooting a 6. 6 can be difficult if it gets shady or dark. He did struggle in some of the shady or dark targets. It's kind of a preference, really. But I really liked 4. I thought 4 was the sweet spot for visibility versus having some zoom.
Well, and with 4, you traditionally don't necessarily have to use a lens in your peep to get the visual.
Yeah.
And when you go to 6, you almost always have to put a lens in your peep. Yep. And what most people overlook is that lens in that peep is reducing the magnification of the front lens. So a lot of times you're not actually ending up any better, but you might end up with a slightly clearer picture. So traditionally for outdoor 3D stuff, I'd stick with a 4.
Yeah, what I've noticed so far is my picture is like very crystal clear to 60. And then when I start getting to the longer stuff, like the long moose out here at 80 or 100, 120, it's a little fuzzy. Mm-hmm. But it's not so fuzzy that I can aim. It's just a little fuzzy.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to have a perfectly clean sight picture other than when you're like trying to visually see a 14 in the corner of a lung and actually see it. Because it's just etched in there. It's not colored, so it can be hard to see.
But at this little local shoot, our average shot length was probably similar to an ASA. It was probably, average shot length was probably 30 yards, maybe 35 yards. There was a good variety from 3 yards all the way up to 60 yards, and a lot of shots between 20 and 40. So not long bombs. Not long bombs, 3D. Arrows, I thought, I mentioned earlier, they cut the wind so well. I just haven't seen an arrow cut the wind like that.
Well, you've never shot an arrow that light with that much tip weight in it either.
Yeah. So we were worried they might be a little low spined. I went with 400 spines, 58-pound draw length, 150 grains of tip weight, but
it's on the weak side, but but barely.
Yeah.
I probably would have gone with a 350 just from the standpoint of the GPI. The arrow wouldn't go up that
probably
much.
Not that much, right?
You're not gaining that much physical weight in the mass of the arrow to rather be. In general, if you're going to try to tune something, it's better to be a little stiff than a little weak when you're tuning it and you're on the little weak side. Not that you can't do it. It just might end up getting finicky in the life of your bow as you're shooting it.
Yeah. Stand clicker release, that seems to be the thing that I shoot the most and shoot the most consistently, and particularly under pressure. I've had some struggles with the hinge under pressure. I had the opposite of that this weekend. I was able to be aggressive with my shot, and I felt really good about it.
Did you see we got the long extensions?
No.
Yeah, we got them yesterday for the stands. So you can move the knob farther out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like where it is, but under pressure, I've had some troubles with hinges. This was the opposite. I was able to double down on it, be aggressive, and my arrow hit behind the pin more than it ever has. A lot of the little things kind of came together where like just bubbling into small slopes and bubbling into small amounts of wind and things like that. Those little nuanced things can make a difference between hitting 11s or 10s or 8s. And
sure.
Yeah, it felt like I had some maturity out there in my decision making, which was cool. So
Oh, look at you all growing up.
coming around the corner, man. Coming around the corner. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Was that a 40 target?
Yeah, 40
Yeah.
targets.
What was your? Do you wish to disclose your score?
Yeah, I do. I think my score was 396, and on the front it was the front 20 targets, which we shot the back 20 targets first. I think was 190, and on the last 20, I think I was in the positive.
Yeah. So you're 6 up.
Yeah, which was the first time I went positive on a 3D thing, and on the final 10 was like where it came together for me because it was under pressure. On the 19th, I hit an 11 as the fourth shooter needed to hit 11 to keep our score. And I think I hit 6 11s on the final 10. So
Was that a known distance shoot?
yeah, known distance shoot.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And yeah, it was fun.
Sweet.
And rainy and windy, which is freaking tough. We were able to get out of the wind a little bit in the forest, so I can't say it was windy the whole way pushing your bow around, but
Did I hear correctly? You guys were the last people on the
I guess
course.
we were, yeah. Which, when we came off, they said we were disqualified. I don't know if we we're actually disqualified or not. I don't think any of us would have got any. I know I wouldn't have. Michael would have been the only one in the ringer for, I don't know what that shoot wins, like maybe a knife or something. But they said we were disqualified. So
Oh, sure.
I thought that might be a good title for this podcast, was I got disqualified from a event. Maybe that will be our title.
Yeah. That could be a decent one.
Tim got disqualified.
What time did you guys get done?
I think it was like 4:15.
Oh, yeah, that's late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Michael's a grinder. He wanted to do a good job. Justin's a little bit of a grinder.
When did you start shooting? What time?
I think
did
it was
you start
9.
shooting? Yeah. So if you're going to be the slow people, you can't wait till 9 to start.
Yeah.
If you're gonna take your time, which I totally respect and have no problem with, you should be there when they start letting you shoot, because it's gonna take you forever.
Well, our plan was to go earlier, but it's like herding cattle. And yeah, we were the last ones walking off. Plus, we had
Justin was tardy.
Plus, we had the double shoot off.
Didn't want to put that out there.
We had to do the double shoot off at the end.
Of course,
so that
you
was So
yeah,
anyway.
the best of intentions, but it ends up running really long.
Yeah, it was a fun local shoot. I was glad
you got to
do
be
it.
done by like 2, I think.
Yeah, 3 was the cutoff. They said
2 or 3 or something like that.
but, yeah.
Well, and the intent of that is so they can start tearing it down because they got to pick it up.
They're gonna leave it up. That one.
But generally, that's why the rules are that way at a 3D shoot, is so the club members can start driving around trying to pick up the targets and not leave them out.
That's good to know.
Because the little known fact, the longer you leave targets outside and up, the faster they break down. Which is why running a 3D course year round is very expensive, because the targets just don't hold up physically. Yeah,
the wear and tear, the physical wear and tear, especially in the Northwest where we get rain and.
Yeah, but I think the number one thing that actually breaks them down, to be honest, is people trying to pull the arrows out without holding the target.
Oh.
Like if you don't put your leg or your hip up against the target when you're trying to pull an arrow out, and you are relying on the legs that are holding them in the ground as your leverage, you're going to break the leg. So I've been trying to figure out a better way to do that. Some kind of stand or whatnot that holds them, that attaches the not just the legs but the body to a stand.
Yeah.
So you can't, if you're pulling on it, it's pulling the entire stand, not just the targets. Because if you look at like some of the ones on the course that are a year old, the legs all jacked. And that's just people pulling the arrow out and not holding the target in place while you pull it out.
Interesting.
So I don't know if there's a perfect solution, but I got to figure out something, because the cost of those things is way too high. I mean, it's sickening to see $1,000 target that's a year old that you can't keep using with a new core in it. The whole point of buying those really good quality targets and those expensive ones, the Reinhardt's, competition grade stuff, is so you can keep using the body and replace the core. Because the core is only $300 or $200, depending on which one. Some of them are super expensive, but in general,
less foam.
they're 10% of the cost of the target. Well, that's all great and dandy if the target doesn't break, but if the target breaks after a year and you can only get a second core in it, it's a waste of money.
Yeah,
right,
dude. Let's talk about this Dart and Consequence. So,
let's not.
No,
no, because they can't ship the damn things, and I've already got orders for a bunch of them.
Really?
The more we talk about it, the worse that's going to get.
Let's talk about it.
Thanks.
Because it's an awesome budget bow. We're going to be part of my budget bow series this year.
It is. It's a great bow.
How does that bow have a 7.5-inch brace height and have the speed it has?
Well, it's not a super fast bow. It's what you're shooting it against. So, like, if you took, what's the best way to put this? When you made the video on that, and I said this bow, they didn't cut any corners to come down to this price point, right? Where normally they would cut corners.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see a bow manufacturer's $1,300 cam on a $700 bow.
Right.
Right? Well, they put a $1,300 cam on a $700 bow. They didn't cut efficiency anywhere or nothing. They were trying to make a more cost-effective high-end bow. It's really what it is, and that's really what they made, and that's why it gets the speed that it gets.
But we just don't see those brace height numbers on, especially shorter axle bows anymore.
Nope.
So,
well, you won't, the speed that's getting, like if you shot it against like a lift 29.5, the lift 29.5 is way faster, but there's more brace height in there. But it's once again, normally when you drop down to a $500 price point bow, they're trying to put a 20 foot a second slower cam on it. Somewhere in there, because they want a significant speed difference between mid-price and high price.
right.
You start putting the same speed difference in a $600 bow that you have on a $1,300 bow, it's harder to sell the $1,300 bow. They know that. Whereas I think Darton's just trying to get back into the market with some significance, so they're going to offer you something that's price friendly.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
so, hey, look at what we're getting out of this.
I think it might be a thing that does bring them back into the market pretty dang well, because there's definitely some buzz around the internet.
For sure. I can tell you, since we put that bow and the Alaskan XT, they're both on the website, right? We've sold way more Consequences.
Yeah.
Like way more. But that could also be lack of access, right? That there's just not that many people selling the Dartons.
Sure.
And there's a crap ton of Alaskan XT bear dealers, right? So that could be why too. I don't know. I know that Bears had a harder time shipping that bow. We've gotten some finally. I think we have like 10 of them or 15 of them.
Well, here's the other thing though is small bow. You expect a small bow not to hold that well. That's one of the trade-offs.
Yes and no. Part of that's limb width. Part of that's pocket design.
But
part
all
of that's
things kept the same.
Part of that's brace height.
You expect smaller bows not to hold as well compared to longer bows.
For sure.
From the small bows that I've shot this year recently, that is holding very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the
could
top.
Could also be honeymoon phase.
Could be.
There's always that honeymoon
Could
phase.
be. Maybe it has something to do with the grip too, because it is a grip style that I like.
It's a great grip.
And that might have to do with how the bow holds for me. But it's holding very well. It's holding very well. It's definitely a contender to go on some hunts. You know, especially on a hunt where you don't want a long bow.
Oh yeah, tree stand ground blind. There's no downside to that.
Or maybe I just want something that fits tight on my pack. Yeah.
If you're not going to shoot super far, but we'll see how
well it shoots that far.
Maybe
it
shoots good distance.
It's going to find out.
It's a high brace height bow. I've had short axle to axle bows that shot relatively well at distance before. So, but that's all in how you load it out. You know, what kind of weight you put on it. Trying to get the balance right.
Yeah. One more thing on our little like hotline buzz line here is old Mr. Ranch Fairy may or may not shoot with us down at TAC.
I'm pretty sure we got to confirm that he's not.
Okay.
Yeah. He's at least the last I heard from him, and I think he got back to Brandon too and said that he's not shooting with us. Said something about he's got to shoot with some subscribers and a possible hunt. He'll try to catch up with us and chat and whatnot, which would be nice, but that's disappointing, man. That's like half of the reason, at least, why I was going.
Yeah, it'd be fun if you could. I mean, that's kind of what I thought was like, we're gonna get. I mean, we're coming 98% of the travel, right? Like,
yeah, and I don't want to dog the guy or nothing. I wish he was gonna shoot with us. I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I want to shoot with him.
I thought the not so much the shooting together, but the dialogue over that time.
Oh yeah, it'd be fun.
Recording that would have been so valuable and so beneficial.
Yeah.
So as much as it's his prerogative. If he can't figure out how to make it happen, I understand. But I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I feel that. I was very much looking forward to it. It'll still be fun regardless. I think we're gonna get a little bonus on that trip that we probably shouldn't talk about till after the trip.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be great. And yeah, I look forward to shooting more 3D. Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to start shooting outside, and I want to make myself want to make myself fire a bow every day and go out and shoot outside once a week.
What is your release of choice right now? Are you on the clicker too?
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I don't think you're going to...
You think it's going to keep you for a while?
I don't think you're going to get me away from it, honestly, because I'm committed to doing something different that mentally than I've done, and a process different than I've done. And I think that release is the correct release for it. So I'm going to rebuild my target bow specifically for a different style, and I'm going to shoot that way. Just like I convinced myself that I am never going to fire a bow knowing it's going to go off again and do whatever it took to get to that point, and I still don't do that today. I'm going to single digit manipulation. I'm going to.
Yeah.
I'm going to. Because there were so many instances where I could have seen that being better if I was just shooting that way. So I'm going to.
Well, and I think, to be fair, you can do single digit manipulation as a surprise or knowing it's going to go off. There are good archers that do both. Yeah. So whatever route you choose will be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I'm not going to know what's going off.
You're not going to know?
No.
Okay.
Nope. No, I'll keep squeezing it, but instead of like a pull harder, I'll just squeeze the thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't believe for a second that I'll have a problem doing it.
I don't think you will either.
Whereas most people would struggle with the pull harder with your finger, and then not every once in a while go kink.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't think I'll do it. I just don't. And who knows? Maybe I'll have conquered the anticipation so much that I could just slam a trigger and not react to it. But that's a very small percentage of people that can do that well. And I just, with how badly I reacted, 20-something years ago, how much I'd get anticipation like that, I have a hard time believing that I could go back to just shooting that way all the time and not reacting. But maybe, there's enough focus and things out there and methods and things mantras to tell yourself that maybe it's more doable than it used to be. I don't know.
And to be fair, when you go to shoot a bow that's single digit manipulation or with your thumb, it's going to be how most people would interpret that differently than you will. Like, you've built good fundamentals over many years of practicing. Your shoulders have great stability. You're going to have great load in the bow and the cams. And, when that bow goes off, it'll still look like an explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll set it up to where I have a lot of load already.
Yeah. I don't think that's something you're ever going to struggle with.
There's good front pressure, good back pressure, no matter what. And it's just, you'll still get a good shot and a good follow through.
Yeah.
But
let me hear your thoughts on this. It seems to me when I get more like the dip bang type thing, or my pin floats out low, it seems to be from lack of front pressure. Is that common, or does that sound right to you?
I think that sounds right.
Yeah. Because when I start to see it float down low, I can kind of double down on my front pressure, and it just kind of holds it up. Not sure if that is common or not, but it's definitely seemed like it's helped me sturdy up my shots. And sometimes when that shot's hung up, it's that last little bit of commitment that I can make that'll just send the arrow.
Sure. Yeah, if it doesn't seem to want to go off and you push forward just a little bit more, you're going to increase a little bit of pressure, and boom, she'll go off.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be one of the things that if a shot's hung up, I can work through it and with some good consistency.
Yeah. No, I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do we got? We got budget bows. You're building a 3D bow. I got a 3D bow.
Let's see.
Target bows.
Yeah, I got like 5 bows to build. I got broadhead.
A lot of people asking about your Fletcher, man.
Yeah, I know. Is
that just hung up?
I honestly, this right here is why I don't like talking about things till they're done.
Yeah. I think there's something to that.
You know how many freaking questions I've got about a quick disconnect offset bar already.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk about it till it's done. Because it's messages, it's emails, it's questions.
Well,
oh
it's
my
good
goodness.
though. You do want to build that product hype cycle.
You do. Within reason. You better know when it's going to be done.
Yeah. You have to
not hope it's soon, etc. And we're still, part of it is my my manufacturer getting overloaded with other things I give him to do while we're trying to finalize that, because we'll fix it. We'll do a rev here, monkey with it, play with it, make sure we're happy with it, and then go, oh, well, it should really do this, or we should really add this, or blah, 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 right? So, and I'm not putting a fletching jig out unless it'll 100% do what I want.
Yeah, and part of that challenge is with an iteration or a thing that you want to be done really well, you want it to be done really well the first time.
Right.
You know, you don't want to put out a Gen 1 that's like something you're going to have to modify in 6 months.
Exactly.
So
yeah, when it comes to a fletching jig, I want to make it once. I don't see it as like a site where you're going to constantly improve and improve and improve. I want to make it one time. And it's, you know, I would say for what it's worth, it's probably 95%. It's close, but at the same time, it's like, well, the same facility that we're working on the fletching jig on is making my draw board, which is being produced as we speak. They're making my weights, making my stabilizer ends, making my offset bars, making other things that I'm not going to talk about yet because I don't want to be asked when they're going to be available. But you know, he's a very talented guy as far as understanding how to manufacture stuff, and I've got a gift for understanding what things are missing and need to be improved on. So it's a really great partnership, and we work really well together. It's just sometimes the lead times get bad. If we can't figure out what's causing something to not be right, it might get shelved for a month or two and come back to it when we've gotten caught up on other projects that are rolling. Because once a product gets out into the market, you know, it's just keeping making more of them, right? And that's easy, and that doesn't involve him personally, which he owns the entire manufacturing facility, right? So he's not just a guy that's helping me. He does stuff for aerospace. He does stuff for the military. He does stuff for firearms manufacturers. I mean, he does some really high level things. And fortunately, because he has interest in this and he's my friend, we get to work on some of these things that aren't nearly as important. But it's growing to the extent that I think it'll be relatively simple to keep focus on it all year now as we go, as products keep evolving, because we've probably got at least 10 different products that we haven't talked about that we're working on. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but all of them are improvements in this sport and things. And when we get the bulk of what you know about done, you'll start to hear about things that maybe you don't know about.
Oh, things in the pipeline.
Well, in my spare time.
Well, see these jeans?
Yeah, they look like they're hanging on for dear life on your legs there.
These jeans didn't fit about a month ago. I wanted to give a little update on the 60-day dial.
Oh yeah.
Monday would have been 35 days, so we're 2 days past. So we're 37 days into the 60-day dial, which I haven't talked about a lot on here. I did want to give maybe like a weekly update, but I didn't do a good job. So in summary, 37 days ago, I was like, hey, I need to clean up my diet. 37 days later, today, I feel great. I feel good. I lost 18 pounds.
Nice, dude.
So
that is not easy to do.
I feel nimble. My energy, I hate reminding myself of this because I've done it before, but my energy level is just so much better. It's more consistent through the day.
Isn't that the ironic thing between losing weight or exercising more? It's amazing how much more energy you have, and people don't do it. Even when you know it and you still don't do it. Well, like myself, I can't justify the time to exercise because I'm very active.
You're
right?
active, yeah.
So it's not like I'm sitting at a desk not doing anything.
You don't need to burn more calories.
I probably don't need to burn more calories, but if I could get my heart rate up for a longer period of time, I would have more energy. And I can't make myself do it because I can't justify the time. But if I had more energy, maybe I wouldn't need as much sleep and I'd have the extra time. And I don't know.
It's weird that way. And you can convince yourself that everything is good.
Right.
Because you don't just get overweight overnight.
No.
It happens slowly. And you convince yourself that you feel the same. But you don't. So, yeah, I feel good. Yeah, I'm excited. Particularly this time of day, like my sustained energy is just so much better. And yeah, I mean, if I could do 30 pounds in 60 days, that would be amazing. That was kind of my stretch goal.
Well, you're at 18 now, and you're how many days?
37 days in. Yeah, so it's doable.
It's doable.
I don't expect to get there. I just, want to keep making good decisions. And yeah, it's been good though.
Sweet,
I feel
man.
good.
Well, congratulations. That's an achievement that most people don't get to say. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's a lot of weight in a short period of time.
Yeah, it's been good. Traditionally I've been able to do things similar, and then the real sweet spot is, can I just continue that momentum and keep going with it? And I think I can. But the other part of it is like, it's just, as you get older, you just don't need as much food.
You don't.
Which sucks, because you're like, you have to take that realization of,
it's so hard.
I am getting older. I don't need as much food, and is what it is.
It's a tricky thing that we all deal with, and I'm still struggling with it. One of the easiest ways to help tone it back is to intermittent fast if you're not doing that.
Yeah.
So you shorten the window of time in which you can eat in, and it's harder to eat as much.
Yep.
And that's a good resolve. And when my dad, towards his end there, I mean, the last 10, 15 years, possibly longer, he was only eating once a day. Mm-hmm. Like, he'd compress it all down to one time a day, and you can't.
Probably didn't look like a ton of food either.
No,
because he was pretty lean, right?
He'd eat a lot of food when he sat down, but he was lean, but he was a stress head, so that contributes. But he would eat 1,500 calories probably in a sitting, or at least 1,200, 1,300 of them, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's all, if you can eat till you're stuffed once and then you don't eat again for another day, that's a good way to not end up getting heavy, right?
Yeah.
So, but everybody's different in that regard. But
Everyone's different.
That helped me a lot when I went to intermittent fasting and stopped eating anything before noon, because then I'm, noon to 7, noon to 8 is all the time I have to eat. So it's easier to get away with 2 meals, and your body gets used to it. And as human beings, we're designed to not eat for long periods of time. We just
I feel that.
forget that. I'm trying to remember what Jason did. He did like a 5-day or 6-day or some crazy thing. I was like, oh man. He's like, yeah, once you got past the first 2 days, it was easy. You just get used to it. But we were hunter-gatherers, right? So, I mean, you went periods of time without food, like extended periods of time without food.
And without fresh fruit, right? Like, that's something that I think, on that perspective, if you're a hunter-gatherer, fruit's not sugar or fruit, which would have been primary back then, isn't in season all the time.
Correct.
Until a person learned to grow a potato, they were getting carbs from some random root vegetables, maybe, and fruit.
Right.
And fruit was in season for how long is fruit in season? Not that long.
No. Well, depending on where you live. But,
depending on where you lived, yeah. And I think there's something to that, too. Like, I think some people do better with food types based on their genealogy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's tests for that.
Yeah.
That show you that. What things you should eat, what things you shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, fire's out. We got Karen recently again.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh, is it the one we talked about?
No, just the one we talked about recently.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we got Karen, and what that means is if you could help us out and just leave us a review wherever you're watching or listening.
That would be gratefully helpful. I appreciate it very much.
It's gratefully helpful. We'll just drown out another Karen. And then maybe conveniently, a couple months down the road, we'll get Karen again, and then we'll have to run this program again, because you guys really show up, and it means a lot. And so just leave a little review where you can, because that stuff does help. And if you want to buy archery goods, you got a website,
BodieMarcher.com, for all those archery needs. $99 and up is free shipping.
He is your dealer.
I'm your dealer.
Yeah, and I have a discount code. It's just Tim C. It'll get you some money off. Most of the things you wouldn't even think it would. Not all the things, but most of the things. And it goes back to help support what we do here. So it's cool. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you back for the next one.
Peace.